Hey, IDS 301, unscheduled video here. Want to help you out with some tips on how to do discussion 4.2. I think questions going to arise on that, and it's important because it has to do with integration, okay, which is the whole point of this, right? If you haven't got that by now, right? Um, so I'm just going to go over quickly through these notes that I have. Um, so what you're going to do is read the article, the North Dakota Norway's experiment. Okay, take notes, do whatever you want to do there. But I want you to identify 3 clear disciplines that are used in that prison system. Okay, so you don't use like journalism for the article. Okay, you don't use photography, photojournalism. You don't use those kind of things. I want you to get into the nuts and bolts of the content and identify 3 disciplines. Okay, because remember, interdisciplinarians. Yes, in your case, you're taking interdisciplinary studies. You're getting 2 concentrations that you want to know a lot about. But in the middle here, the actual IDS part is a process, right? We've talked about that. And integration is a verb. It's the process that's used to do interdisciplinary studies, right? So, what I want you to do is we're going to use Tanner. That's our writer here, Tanner. If you're in my 302 coming up, Tanner is very important. We are going to use his 5 steps. Now, in the readings here, make sure you do the readings. You're introduced to Repko's steps, Newell's steps, Klein's steps, and Tanner's steps. We decided on Tanner's because it's concise. It's not confusing as some of the other ones, not as advanced. You should be able to get them. So, what I want you to do is, in this exercise, is a rudimentary, very rudimentary process of integration and analysis, more or less, analysis of the North Dakota experiment. So, step 1 is to define a complex issue or problem found in this article. This article. I emphasize that because some students in the past have come back with some like climate change or something. I don't even know why, but okay, be specific, provide some background information concerning the issue or problem. I just want to know that you've identified something and you can tell me why you believe it's a complex problem, because complexity is a requirement for an interdisciplinary analysis and resolution, right? If it's a problem. So, yeah, this freaking, it's 5/26, my birthday, and 5/26, I'm yawning. Oh, God. Okay, so you want to do that. It's not that difficult. Then you want to justify number 2, and you can list these steps in your discussion so I know where your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is. Okay. Number 2, justify an interdisciplinary approach. So why is it interdisciplinary? Ask some, meaningful questions about it. Okay. The issue, the problem. How are those questions interdisciplinary? What makes them meaningful? So, for example, let's use COVID pandemic as an interdisciplinary example of this. Okay, let's say it was an article about COVID. Okay, and I'm going to identify, say this article is about all kinds of pandemic issues, and right, I'm going to say political science is one that I see here because the pandemic has become political. Okay, then you've got the medical discipline of medicine, discipline of political science. Okay, then you got a discipline of psychology. Those are my 3 disciplines I'm going to choose to look at the pandemic. And number 2, justify an interdisciplinary approach. What meaningful questions can you ask about the problem? How are those questions interdisciplinary? I'm going to ask questions like, how did this thing go sideways? Now, I may not use that language in a colloquial, but how did it go sideways? How did we go from having this pandemic come into the country, identifying it, watching the charts go up, 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 having a humongous global effort never seen before, to develop vaccines, have those vaccines developed, tested, and implemented, and watching those numbers come down so that by June I was mask free, So how did it go? How did it end up going back up? What are some of the dynamics? Why? Why do we do this? In terms of the medical discipline, I mean, we do vaccines all the time. We have flu vaccines. You can't get into college on campus without vaccines. You can't go to grade school without vaccines. You get your hepatitis vaccine, you get your MMR, you get your measles, chickenpox, whatever, rubella. You got to have those. Did anybody complain about those? So there, how is it interdisciplinary? All these things, psychology. What is making people not want to get vaccinated? Is it, yes, there's history at Tuskegee in terms of the research and how African Americans have been screwed over by this. But so I'm going to coalesce some questions. Why is it justified as interdisciplinary? That you can't solve this issue, and let's say the issue is not the pandemic, the issue is like vaccinations. You can't solve why are we not getting vaccinated with one discipline, okay? Number 3, locate multiple sources of relevant disciplinary knowledge, information, perspectives that will address the issue problem. So I'm going to go on the ASU library. I'm going to look under COVID vaccination. I'm going to look on the right side. There should be a comment that says peer reviewed only. You click it. It's a filter. Peer reviewed academic journals. It'll go in there. Academic journals have no advertising, no bias. They're supported by their groups like American Interdisciplinary or the Association of Interdisciplinary Studies, the American History Foundation or whatever. All these things, they're supported by the membership. Yeah, number 2. And they do a peer review for articles. Okay, so you finding this, there's no bias. You're not reading the article by Pfizer or reading the article by anti-vaccination group. Okay, you're reading a peer-reviewed of this whole group. Okay, whether or not you believe the peer review group, that's beside the point. Then like I said, if you're not open to science, then frankly I don't know why you're in college. But anyways, so you're gonna look at all 3 disciplines though. What can we find about in terms of vaccines with the medicine side? What about the vaccine resistance and the psychology side? What about the vaccine mandates and the fact that we've gotten to this point under political science? And looking up things like that. Maybe you'll find articles about how there was mandates. George Washington mandated his soldiers back in the day. How about this or that? What are we looking at here? Okay, and I'm going to take notes on all these things. Number 4. Now we get into the juicy stuff here. So number 4, consider the disciplines that you choose. After reviewing those articles that are related, peer-reviewed sources, and remember, I want the articles, not like, hey, the Journal of Medical Vaccination. No. The journal is where you look, but the articles in the journal is what you need. They're more specific. If any of you are old enough to remember magazines, inside a magazine, there were magazine stories. It wasn't just the whole magazine, right? Same thing with journals, right? Okay, so you want to look at them in step 4 and write this down and analyze them and see, again, if we have patterns of connections and conflicts between the disciplines. Now, how do we do that? Start by going in your book. I think the old version, same thing. Page 73. You can start by just looking at conditions for integration, okay, because that's going to help me maybe with the first step and the second. And then you go to chapter 8. And on chapter 8, page, well, the whole thing at chapter 8, it's huge. It's huge, okay? Because while Tanner used to be very big on conflicts, connections, he's now, I think, shifted into more about transfer, knowledge transfer in terms of integration, knowledge transfer, and the different types of knowledge transfer. This is the essence of integration. This is the part that gives you that skill, that knowledge that you've been craving for since you got to this class, right? This is it. This is it. That's why I'm doing this video, because this is it. Types of transfer, okay? This is interdisciplinary integration at an academic level. This is where it occurs, okay? So in chapter 8, you'll read about knowledge transfer, okay? And the types of transfers. Knowledge transfer is the general subject, the general concept. Within that, there are types of transfers. There's near transfer, far transfer, okay? There is low road transfer, there's high road transfer. Okay, and he gets into what these mean, near or far, what the context is. I'm not going to waste your time here because it's right there, and I'm just going to repeat myself. Okay, then there's backward reaching transfer and forward reaching transfer. Read this. It's very clear to me. It's very clear. I know it'll be clear to you. You'll get it. If you don't, let me know, but you'll understand because he uses metaphors a lot. So in terms of backward reaching transfer, he talks about, or which is it? Maybe it's low road, I think, or far transfer. He talks about the knowledge you have from driving a car, and now you got to drive a truck. So that's near transfer, and it's very similar, right? Far transfer, you learn how to drive a car. Now you're going to fly a Cessna. Well, it's similar. It's a mode of transportation, but it has different factors. So it's a far transfer. Okay, think about that in terms of the backward reaching transfer. Okay, so I got to do something. And I hate to keep using these non-academic but backwards reaching. So let's say we're talking about. I was just thinking about something like I used to work at a restaurant. Okay, so I learned a lot about cooking certain things. I'm cooking certain things. Right now, I got to look at solving this issue for my design engineering course on commercial ovens or things like that. I might reach back into my experience as a cook, bring some of that knowledge forward because it probably will help. Okay, so mechanisms, types of transfer, mechanisms of transfer. Okay, and then there's bridges for transfer and hugging transfer. I like his bridging transfer is like the relationship between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel in Karate Kid. Oh my God, I hope some of you know that. I know a lot of you do, right? So that's more of a bridging of knowledge, okay? As opposed to hugging is something you should read because I can't think fast enough about an example of it. So you've got those things. Now, what you want to do then in step 4 is you want to look at and also it's okay to look at basics too. Like, okay, I've got psychology and agriculture. There's not a whole lot that goes hand in hand with psychology and agriculture. Go ahead and give me those 3 disciplines and compare 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 2 to 3. And you compare them. You're saying, well, look, agriculture and psychology don't mix, but here's a way we could maybe far transfer each. I don't know. Then we got psychology and sociology. Well, here those 2 are much more closely related. Okay, you follow me kind of here on this where step 4, I just want you to look at your 3 disciplines you chose, compare and contrast them, use some of these concepts. Notice they're bolded in here, okay? If I see these, I know you've done the reading because you're trying to transfer knowledge of the reading into your paper discussion, okay? This should be a paper. Again, I'm sick of these as discussion boards because it turns out nothing but a mess, all right? So just post it accordingly 1 through 5, right? And then step 5, create and discuss a rudimentary integrated framework that might begin to provide a holistic understanding of the problem issue. So this is where you take your 3 disciplines, you take what you've learned about these 3 disciplines, you take what you see and you consider about the issue, the problem. That was the North Dakota, Norway experiment. And then you just think about all 3 of these, how you could address all 3 and integrate what you've learned into what they did, I guess, what they could do more, what they did right. Use that to analyze it. Again, I'm not looking for perfection as much as I'm looking for thinking. That's called academic rigor. I want you to consider things, okay? I'm sorry if it's not as clear as you might think it should be and maybe you're not prepared, but This is how you jump into the pool and you get used to the water real quick, okay? Those 5 steps. So I want you to feel free to go with it, okay? Just give me an organized discussion board. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then just feel free. Do the work, use the concepts. Don't just do this like based on what you know coming into this class, because I'll spot that a mile away. You know that, and that won't work out. Okay, there's no responses required. Okay, and there's 40 points. Now, if you made it this far, dang it. Anybody want to go to the Phoenix Rising match tonight? I have the best seats in the house, and I don't think I'm going. It starts in less than 2 hours. All right. Here's the deal. I wasn't going to do this, but send me 3 types of transfer with just like one sentence about what it is, maybe, and I'll give you 5 points. I'll add it to the uh, Module 4 video score, okay? I know it's not much, but hey, you made it 16 minutes and 17 seconds, 18, 19, 20. All right, so thanks. Have a good night. Questions, comments, concerns, send them.